Episode 203 of CppCast with guest Corentin Jabot, recorded June 18th, 2019. Sponsor of this episode of CppCast is the PVS Studio team. The team promotes regular usage of static code analysis and the PVS Studio static analysis tool. And by JetBrains, maker of intelligent development tools to simplify your challenging tasks and automate the routine ones. JetBrains is offering a 25% discount for an individual license on the C++ tool of your choice, CLion, ReSharper C++, or AppCode. Use the coupon code JetBrains for CppCast during checkout at jetbrains.com. In this episode, we discuss stood variant state machines. Then we talk to Corentin Jabot. Corentin tells us about some of his proposals for C++ 20 and much more. Welcome to episode 203 of CppCast, the first podcast for C++ developers by C++ developers. I'm your host, Rob Irving, joined by my co-host, Jason Turner. Jason, how's it going today?
I'm all right, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Don't really have too much news to share. You?
No, nothing at the moment. No immediately impending conferences or anything like that coming up, but we'll get back around to conference season soon enough, I guess. For me, anyhow. Although we didn't, discuss the fact that, there's all kinds of conferences going on. I mean, we're kind of mentioning that on the side, but I'm not going to all of them.
No one can go to all of them. But yeah, we'll talk more about this in a little bit, but they just had the CppP conference in France, and there's also recently the Italian one too, right?
Yes, they're on the same day.
Yeah. Okay, well, at the top of the episode, I'd like to read a piece of feedback. This week, we got a tweet from Sumit Bardwaj saying he's listened through episodes 1 to 201 of CppCast and can now differentiate between Oogie and Loogie and EWG. Do we call EWG Oog, or is it just EWG?
I think it's just a EWG. I don't know.
Yeah. And also what a set of improvements in standards conformance for MSVC. So yeah, thanks for listening to all of our episodes, Sumit. Yeah. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the show. You can always reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or email us at feedback@cppcast.com. And don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes or subscribe to us on YouTube. Joining us today is Corentin Jabot. Corentin is a freelance developer and member of the French National Body and C++ Committee, where he participates in the tooling, Unicode, and library evolution working groups. He has been doing C++ for about 10 years and currently works with Mobsia, a Swiss nonprofit making educational robots for kids. Corentin, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
I always like to ask, how did you get started with C++?
So I did a bit of C++ at university. But at the time, I did mostly Java, and I think it was Java 5. And I guess I got bored of university, and so I started to send my resume to this game company, and I think they like me. And they told me, okay, we want to hire you, but we want you to begin in 2 weeks. And also, can you learn C++ in 2 weeks? And because I was young, I said yes, and that's how I started with C++.
Because you were young, you said, I remember those days. Can you do this? Yes, I can definitely do that. Just give me a week.
How did you go about learning C++ in 2 weeks, and how successful were you at it?
I did both Bjarne's the C++ programming language book,
okay.
Which at the time I did bought it in French.
Okay.
And I started to read it and try to make my way to it. But then I guess it still takes months and months for me to actually start to actually understand what I was doing, and then years to be somewhat efficient with C++. So
So did you actually read the entire book in that 2-week period?
Probably not, but I go through it a bit, and most of it is actually references and So it describes overall the SCL and so forth. So the language side is like reasonable.
Right.
So yeah.
So you did make a point of saying that you bought it in French at the time. Does that mean you would buy it in English today?
Yeah, I actually have the new I think it's the 4th edition in English, and yeah, because they tried like to translate everything in French, but technical terms translated are a bit weird, and so yeah.
I'm always fascinated by that. The technical translations of books. Yeah.
I guess maybe it's an issue that they don't have technical people doing the translations, maybe? I've never heard of that being an issue, but I would think maybe if you have someone who speaks English and French fluently, but maybe isn't familiar with C++, that could cause problems.
Yeah, and technical terms are supposed to be really specific, so when they translate it, sometimes some bit of meaning is lost.
Right.
Yeah, so...
Okay, well, we got a couple of news articles to discuss. Feel free to comment on any of these, and then we'll start talking more about the work you've been doing, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so this first one is another update from the Catch unit testing library. They're now up to version 2.90, and it looks like the main change here is that they are adding a new type of benchmarking support, which they got from actually integrating from a different library called Nonius.
That is what they said. I was not familiar with Nonius before this.
No, I was not either, but seems like it's an improvement.
Yeah. I know from the Reddit comments that people were very pleased with that decision.
Right.
There's another line item on here, though.
Go ahead.
Template test cases now support type lists.
Mm-hmm.
And I clicked on that issue. It's issue number 1627. And to see that it was someone asking for support for some macro that lets you pass in a type list and have that automatically expanded into testing the same template against multiple types. And I'm like, wow, that looks interesting. But then I dug a little bit deeper to see that that's just an enhancement of an already existing feature that let you do something like that. And I'm like, I've been using Catch off and on for several years now, but I did not appreciate just how much it has grown in the tools that are available. So if you're using Catch and you think, oh yeah, I know Catch, I've been using it for like 3 years, but you haven't like gone and looked at what the current features are, you probably should.
Okay, that's good advice. Yeah, I haven't taken maybe that close of a look at it in quite a while either. Okay, next thing we have is that the Core C++ conference, which was in Israel a couple of months back, now has their YouTube videos online, or at least some of them. Looks like they have 8 up so far, and they definitely had more than 8 classes, right, Jason?
Oh yeah, there were definitely more than 8 sessions. Wait, well, there are 2 tracks for 2 days. Yeah, it was definitely more than 8. Yes,
but it looks like your keynote is already up here.
It is.
Yeah. So I am way behind on my conference video watching. I think the last thing I watched was Herb's ACCU talk, so I'll have to start catching up with some of these.
Yeah. I haven't gone and watched any of the videos. I know that mine is up, and I can't watch my own, so I didn't watch it.
Yeah. I did watch it, and it's pretty great.
Oh, good, thanks.
Yeah, and I like that you show the evolution of C++, and we can see that C++ is becoming basically a better version of itself over time. So, yeah, it was a nice video.
Yeah, I had a concept in mind, but when you're preparing a talk, you don't always know where it's going to go. And then as I got like 3/4 of the way through it, I'm like, wait, the language actually is getting better with each version. That's pretty cool.
We are trying to do that, yeah. So it's great to see that we are succeeding.
Okay, and then the last thing we have is a post on Bartek's blog, and this is, I think, from a guest post.
Guest post, yes.
Yeah, from Nikolai Wutke, and it's about a variant-based state machine with this example of a space game. And I thought this was a pretty good example of how to use stood variant in making a state machine. I hadn't seen it written out in such a way before, then it's a really good example.
I'm curious, question for both of you. Mm-hmm. Are you used to using a state machine for managing the state of your project?
I'm not too familiar with their use, but I like this example. How about you,
okay.
Corentin?
Yeah, I don't do that often, but what I found funny about this blog post is that they have the overloaded function. I don't know if you ever try to define overloaded to pass a set of lambda to visit, right?
Right.
And I think there was a proposal for that before the committee at some point, but it like never get through. And everyone implements the same exact things because you cannot use like lambda with visit otherwise. So it's and it's like I think 4-line. You probably implemented that too, right?
Yeah, I've done a C++ weekly episode about it. In C++ 17, it's like literally 4 lines in the most terse possible way. Yeah, I just on the last project that I started, I did try using a state machine, but I've never used a state machine before, so I kind of just was fumbling around trying to figure out how to best do it, and was like, oh wow, this makes a lot of sense. Now I know exactly what state the program is in at any given moment. And I feel like this article did a great job of kind of filling in some of the pieces where I could have done things better than what I had done. So I strongly recommend this article for our listeners to go back and read it.
Well, Corentin, let's start off by just telling us a little bit more about the work you do as a C++ freelancer and this nonprofit making educational robots. That sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I'm basically a freelancer because I'm in France, they're in Switzerland, so it was basically easier to set up it that way legally, I guess.
Okay.
And so what they do is that they have like this little robot which is like quite small, and it's like just basically motors and LEDs and some sensor, and they sell that to schools for like children from 6 years old and more, and try to do like programming with like visual block and something on desktop. So it's pretty interesting. And yeah, so they have, and so it's actually quite old design at that point. So the microchip they have in there is actually 24 bits, sorry. And so it's kind of a pain to work with.
24-bit architecture?
Yeah.
Which CPU is 24-bit?
It's a an old microchip.
Okay.
And so basically it's like a 32 bits microchip with 1 byte disabled somehow.
Okay.
So it's a pretty nasty thing, and so it's mostly the firmware is mostly C, and so of course it's like GCC 4.5 or some things so it's kind of old, but I'm mostly doing like desktop application with SU and C++ 17, so that part is pretty nice. And
so when you're in a standards committee meeting and someone is like, well, can't we just like define integers always being at 32 bits, and you like raise your hand and you're like, no, we can't.
Yeah, that would be nice, but yeah. But I mean, I don't think like it's really much of a problem because basically this weird architecture don't really update their toolchain. Okay. So they will probably stay to GCC 4.5 forever. And they will probably never care about C++ that much, unfortunately. And so like it's not really a problem for this committee. So the committee does care, right? And they will never like decide that int is 32 bits. But in practice, like people never update their toolchain. So I guess we could do that if we wanted to, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So how successful has the project been actually with the school kids?
I think like it's great. So teacher really like we try to make something simple for teacher, and sometimes like kids are actually better at using that than the teacher. And yeah, so kids like can understand like programming, like it's natural for them, and teacher like sometimes struggle. Yeah, but so they try to they make like, I guess, like I don't like interact with kids directly, so I don't like really know what happened in classrooms.
Right.
But like they learn a bit of logic and a bit of math and a bit of programming, like but like I mean it's like really simple, right? They don't do like C++ or anything like of that nature, but I guess it's like great for them to learn math and logic and that kind of thing.
So you said it's like a visual programming language, right?
It's Scratch. I don't know if you know.
Oh, it is Scratch. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So, yeah,
So they can drag in blocks, let's say, like
yeah,
move the
basically.
robot, whatever.
Yeah.
It's fun. Kind of want one.
Yeah.
I definitely would have wanted one 30 years ago when I was a kid. There's no question.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a difficult market. Like, they're a pretty successful company in America called Anki, I think. Or I don't remember if that was the name of the robot or the name of the company. And they had like hundred of billion of a million of investment from like Disney and yeah, and they were doing like facial recognition and so really something like really advanced that we don't have that. And one day they shut down completely overnight. So like trying to do something with cool is quite difficult. Yeah, but yeah.
Okay. As we just mentioned, the CPPP conference was this past week. You're able to make it to that?
I was able to make it to that, yeah. So
How was the first conference?
Yeah, it was pretty great. They have like a great list of speakers. So I think like they contacted the speakers they wanted directly. And so they had Kate doing a keynote. And Anna Duzivoska did her CTRE talk, which apparently she modified again from the last time she did it.
She does an amazing job of updating it every time, yes.
Yeah, and so now slides are even more dynamic than before.
Wow.
And yeah, to the point that people ask a question about her slide, right? They care more about the slide than CTRE itself. And Odin did a talk that I think it's the same talk that he gave at CppNo about using DSL and functional programming. And there was a talk. So the thing is, like, it was a one-day conference, and I still have to choose between different tracks because there are 2 tracks, and every single track was really great. So a topic I didn't see. So I know that Simon Brown tried and succeeded in implemented a compiler in Brandper compiler in 15 minutes, and apparently was successful, and that was great. And
He's a madman.
yeah. I wouldn't try that. Yes, but so it was really great, and I think there was 150 people. So someone I think noticed that it actually more people in CPPP than at CPP now.
That would be probably accurate, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it was pretty great, and I think they're like doing one next year.
Did they already announce the dates?
Yeah, there's no, but it will be June.
Okay.
So around the same dates, and this time they will do a call for proposal. So if you want to visit France, Jason, I think, yeah.
I might have to submit to that one. That's so I put out a challenge on Twitter for people who were attending either C++ Italy or CPPP Paris to try to attend both of them. And did you try that? Did you try to fly between Milan and Paris in one day or anything?
I did not try that, and I think like Fred, I don't remember his name, but one of the organizer did the joke during the opening statement that if people wanted to go to Milan, they could. But yeah, yeah. But I think like next year it will be actually 2 days.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe it will be more.
Yeah, and it's I'm impressed. 150 people. I mean, C++ now has a hard limit of 150. They can't go more than that because of the venue.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's pretty crazy.
But it was fun. So
very good.
So you've been involved with the standards committee for a while now. Is that right?
Since Rapperswil, so a bit more than a year, I think.
Okay. Do you have any active proposals you're working on?
I do have 12.
12?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and list them all out. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so I don't really know how that happened, but I think the last mailing, so before Kona, I had the most number of paper in the mailing list, and this was really not intentional, but it happened. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that was Izzy.
That
So
was
I guess.
before San Diego, right? You had the one before.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you get an award at the standards meeting if you submitted the most papers, or do they kick you out if you submitted the most papers?
It's more like, yeah, it's I guess that you have to do wording for your paper afterwards, so it's like lots of work. So it's like I don't recommend having too many paper in committee meeting, because at some point I was running between room and it's like exhausting, and even like keeping track of all the paper is work in itself. So yeah, but we have like something called the wrong number. It's in reference to Michael Wong, who is a committee member.
Okay.
And he's just chair of like multiple group, and I think he holds the record for the most paper, and so we compare to that, like, but yeah, it's like really not, I mean, it's really not a race, because like it's a lot of work, and so yeah, I definitely don't recommend having like more than a manageable number of paper, but it did happen.
Well, if you've got 10 that you're 12, you said that you're actively working on. What's the most significant one in your mind? What's the one you are spending the most time and effort on?
Okay, so that would be, so I'm really bad at remembering numbers. So people in the committee can say this number, and they understand I really cannot do that. But I have a paper, I think it's like 1207.
Okay.
That is movability of single pass iterators. And it's like took me the longest time to work on it, and I've been working on it for basically a year, and it's like basically a one-line change, and it does modify one concept in the hierarchy of iterator constraining concepts to make them not require to be copyable, and that allow you to have a move-only input iterator.
Move only input iterator, okay.
Yeah, and the idea is that if you have a file or a socket, you cannot have copy of that, right? Because I mean, you only have it. You have to think about it like a reading head, and so you only read it from one place. And if you try to make copies and you read it again, you will have the same, not the same value, right? Because you will already have advanced in your file.
Right.
And so making the iterator move only is it's safer, basically.
Okay. So a new category of iterators that are move
So
only.
it's not a yeah. So someone else proposed a new category of iterator, and like it's really not. So it doesn't really work. So it just you don't. So it's still an input iterator that you don't have to copy, right?
Okay.
So it's really just a concept that changed. And so I talked to some people, and they wanted to do that for a very long time, and they couldn't because it would be a breaking change to remove some requirement from iterator, right? And we had a unique opportunity in 20 to do that because we are adding like actual concepts and the range library, and so everything is every requirement of iterators that we have since 98, we are making that into actual concepts in a new namespace. So we have a unique opportunity to fix that now. And so either this paper will be approved in Cologne, or it will be dead forever, right? Because once C++20 ships, we cannot modify any concept ever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So concepts are like really scary because you can never remove anything from them, obviously, and you can never add anything to them because that would like break overload sets, and So when you make a concept in the standard library, it will never ever change. Otherwise, it's like a crazy API break. So
Right.
yeah.
I mean, fortunately, some of these things like iterator categories and containers types have been pretty stable for decades.
Yes, yeah, but they're changing quite considerably in 20, right?
Okay.
Eric Nibbler and Casey Carter did a lot of work to make iterator work properly with reference type like vector bools and this kind of really nasty container, and so we changed some definition and some requirements
Okay.
of the concept, right? And I'm adding to that. So yeah, so for most people and most cases it will be the same, but in some cases the requirement will be slightly different and better, right? So we try to really so most people see like ranges as just a pair of iterators, something like to write a sort algorithm called better, right? But actually behind the ranges proposal, there are like a lot of work to really specify the requirement of everything as best as we possibly can and like be really meticulous about it. So I think that's a great benefit of the range proposal that most people won't care about. But and the end result of that is like if you have a vector bool and you try to factor on something, it will just work because of that work. So yeah.
Well, it seems just remarkable how often an argument involves because vector of bool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that some people are trying to get rid of it in the future. So I think like Jean-Yves Menir is trying to work on that, but it will be a while before that can happen.
And I think to be fair, I mean, it becomes the punching bag for a lot of these things, but it's representative of anything that has to return a proxy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's not the only use case for returning a proxy for your iterator.
It is the only use case in the standard. That's why.
In the standard, yeah, sure. But I mean, like other people have done their own things. I would assume anyhow. I think I have at some point.
Yeah, but making that work is like really, really hard. So, yeah.
Right.
So is this proposal, do you think it's going to make it into C++ 20? I mean, you're saying if it doesn't, then it's kind of dead, but
Yeah,
do you think it will make it?
Most of my proposal at this point. So so last meeting was Kona, and Kona was the feature freeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically there should not be new proposal, and so this proposal was accepted at Kona by library evolution.
Okay.
And now it is in between library evolution, which is the design group, and library working group, which is more the wording group. So I have most of my paper are between these two groups. And so now it's a matter of doing the wording in time, and that's in time means before the end of the colon meeting, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is soon, right?
It's in 14 July, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. And the deadline for that meeting was Monday. Yeah, so actually I spent my Monday finishing the best I could all my paper and sending them to.
So, this is the one you've been spending the most time on, you said, but if you have 12 papers, how many of them did make it through, the Lugi group or Oogie group?
So I did have, I don't remember how much, but maybe I think I have 7 or something paper between Lugi and Lug.
Okay.
Sorry, between Lug and LWG.
Okay. So 7 that are currently still being worked on.
Yeah, some 7 that are waiting for wording review.
And could potentially make it into C++ 20.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and I have a few new papers for still for 20, but yeah. Yeah, but most of that work is trying to make ranges work with like existing container type and span and string view. So it's like trying to finish ranges the best we can and dotting the I and crossing the T on everything. So it's like not big feature, but it's
Well, so you're saying at the moment ranges would not work with span and string view.
so you cannot have a span over a range. So if you have a
Okay.
contiguous range, you cannot have currently a span over it or a span over like a pair of iterator.
Okay.
And it's like, it doesn't like use concept at the moment, so it try to define how you can construct a span over a container, but it's like a bit of nasty definition. And so I have a paper to permit that, and the same thing for string view.
Okay.
And so yeah.
And it both comes down to the fact that they required to be contiguous containers.
Yeah, you do have to require contiguous range.
Okay.
So this is like a new concept in 20, contiguous range and contiguous iterator.
Okay.
And you need that because a span is really just a pointer and a size, so you need to make sure that your underlying elements are contiguous in memory, otherwise you point to nothing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think this might be a moment worth maybe mentioning for our listeners. So something like a list, you can have a begin and end iterator, and the elements of the list can be everywhere throughout memory. You have no idea where they are. But with array or vector or string view or span, you know that each element is immediately following the previous element physically in memory. Well, logically in memory, I guess, because the operating system can do whatever it wants to. But that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, so there was that, and then I have a paper with Casey and Eric. So you know that views in 20 are lazy, right?
Oh, I'm only vaguely familiar with ranges and views, honestly, but
Okay.
yes. Okay.
Yeah. So when you do when you have so a range is basically just a pair of iterator, right? So it can be a container, but it doesn't have to be. And all of views like transform or drop, take, or iota, these things are lazy, so they don't they operate on their element as you move over the range, but they don't like take any memory. You never have the full range in memory, so that allow you to have, for example, infinite range, and you can just iterate over that and never use any memory basically, except for the one element you are trying to work on. But sometimes you want that view to be, you want actually to commit that view in memory. And so we have a proposal to convert any view to any container with a range adapter. So you would like, say, take a view, do your transformation with the pipe syntax that we have in ranges, and then just pipe that to a function that's called to, and to vector, and it will like take that views and create a vector out of it. And now you have a vector in memory, and you can keep that vector. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, but I'm wondering if you have to tell it the type of vector or if you can somehow deduce the type of vector that it needs to be.
So it's like quite magical. So you can tell it the type. If the same type is the same type, it's fine. If can also do implicit conversion. So you can have like a views of int and put that in a view of long, whatever, in a vector of long, that will work.
Right.
And it will work with maps and associative containers too. If you have like a view over like pairs, it will convert that to a map and so forth. So it works in either case. So you have to, you can specify the type, but you don't have to. And yeah.
And now I'm curious because I'm not familiar with all 12 proposals that you have in flight. I did look at some of them. Since with your interest in ranges and iterators and move-only iterators, do you have anything in flight to deal with this issue that initializer lists are const arrays and we always have to copy the data out of them? It seems like a use case for like move iterator or move only. I don't know. Maybe you could fit something in.
I don't have a paper for that, and I don't think like anyone does. And the issue is that any seller list is in read-only memory in your binary, right? So you cannot like move from it because it's in a part of memory of your executable that you can not modify. I think that's the reason why it's only by copy. I may be wrong, right? Because it's not something that like completely familiar with, but I think that was one of the reasons why it's not possible.
Certainly,
and I think like,
yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say an initializer list of trivial types. Oh, well, yes, they'll probably be in read-only memory, but if it's anything that isn't trivial, then it can't be, right? Like initialize a list of shared pointer, for example. I don't think that could ever be compiled into read-only memory.
Yeah, probably. I actually don't really. I think like there was this issue, and I'm probably one other issue, but I know that people have looked at it, and I don't think like it's possible, but I may be wrong. And
yeah, but you make a good point. I don't know.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, I will try to ask someone who actually knows what they're talking about. Yeah.
So one thing oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing I was curious about is I think we talked about some blog posts of yours that you made late last year about improving modules, and I was wondering what your opinion is on the kind of final state of modules that's going into C++20.
Yeah, so I'm not really happy with module as they are, but they are in the standard, and so now we have to like deal with the fact that they are there, and I don't think like it would be useful to try to stop it at this point. But so what we did at so the issue with module is that one of the issues with module is that like it quite transformative in the C++ ecosystem, and existing tools and build system, IDE, and so forth are really not equipped to deal with module, right? And some of these things are like people like never rewrite their build system, so people are using make and auto tools and all these things that are really not designed to handle modules. And so we try like to modify maybe the language to make this thing easier, and we realized with some people at Kona, I guess, that we would get nowhere. And so with Pinter Bindles and René Rivera, we decided at Kona to make a proposal for a separate document that would be the technical reports for modules and how to use module in your code, and that was quite well received by everybody involved. So before that, there were like some conflict between like tool people and compiler people. So, but I think like everybody at the table likes this idea of making like a separate document, so that way we don't have to care about tools and actual like source file in the standard, because the standard don't even like accept that there are files, right? And so it's really made for like you can have you can program your C++ program on your sheet of paper and compile that. So it's like really abstract. And so there's like a joke going around that Richard Smith is a valid C++ compiler implementation. Yeah, because it like knows the standard, and so you can like actually write use a sheet of paper to compile. And anyway, so what we decided to do is to make a separate like technical report, and that was really well received. And now we have like meeting every two weeks to decide what we are going with that. So how to actually implement modules in like both compiler and build system, and make sure that can work together. So I don't know how that will go, and I still have like some reservation, but I think that we might be in a better place than we were like 6 months ago. So.
And you said you've been meeting every 2 weeks.
Something like that, yes. So Bryce Leback, I'm like saying everybody's name terribly, but so Bryce Leback is now the chair of the tooling group.
Okay. You're mostly talking about people we've had on the show, so
I know.
Okay.
Yeah. So and so he's like trying to drive that. And at this point, the tooling group is really the module ecosystem group. So we stop like caring about anything else.
Okay.
So we try to focus on modules so that modules are to make sure that modules are a success story after 20 release.
It probably is the most important thing right now.
Yeah, I think it is. So we are trying to focus on that and making sure that we find solutions that everybody can agree and CMake people are trying to implement module in CMake and in Ninjas and so forth. So it's like going pretty well, hopefully.
So you're pretty happy with the status of this document so far, and I'm guessing this should be released alongside C++20?
Probably after. So
after, okay.
At this point, we have nothing in the document.
Okay.
We are trying to figure what we say in it, but the fact that there are everybody at the table is like encouraging. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
One of your proposals that has caught my eye, I think each time I've seen it come up in the list of committee papers, is deprecating the comma operator in, how does it worded, in subscripting operations.
Yeah. So
Can you explain that one?
Okay, so if you have an array, right, and you can index it, right, and you can have a comma in there because you can have a comma everywhere.
Because it's C++.
Because it is C++, right? And that probably doesn't mean what you think it does, right? It's like the comma operator is something that people don't really expect.
Right.
And the reason of that paper is that not in 20, but probably in 23, there will be MD span. So MD span is like span, but multidimensional. So you can have a vector, something like 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional, maybe something like to represent a 3D space or something.
Right.
And there are also people working on linear algebra, and they are trying to make a matrix type. So this can also be multidimensional. And now there is the issue of how you index that thing, right? And you cannot use the subscript operator because that operator only supports one dimension, right?
Right.
And so what they are doing is they are using the call operator. Because the call operator is the only operator that we have that you can have multiple arguments to it.
Right. And you're talking the parentheses versus the brackets, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason I wrote this paper is that, first of all, like having a parenthesis is like not really readable. So you don't necessarily understand what your class is doing. If you see parentheses, what are you calling?
Right.
And so that is an issue. And the other issue is that we are trying to, and I guess we are trying to do that to like teach people not to use operator overload for something they are not designed to, because it becomes not maintainable and difficult to understand. Mm-hmm. And so if the C++ community start to use operator to do something that they were not meant to be meant to do, people will do that too, right? Because some people think that the committee is a gold standard, and so if you start to do something that is maybe a bad practice, people will do it too, and they will say, yeah, but the committee is doing it. And so deprecating this comma in subtract expression will let us hopefully like remove them completely in 23 and having this new semantic where you can have multiple index for multiple dimension. And then you can say you want have a matrix or like a geometrical space of some kind, of like a picture. If you want like a specific pixel on the screen, you can use that multidimensional operator, I guess. So that is That was the goal of the proposal. And it was accepted by both evolution and core. So the wording is done and everything is accepted, but there was like some clerical error. So it was actually not voted on in Kona, but I expect it will be in colon. So it should be in 20, and compiler will emit a warning for that. Yeah.
So the first step is to deprecate it, and you still haven't yet actually added the ability to have multiple parameters in the subscript operator?
No, we did not, and I am hoping that we can do that in 23 at the same time as we do MDSpan. But this will be quite difficult to convince people that we can both add a new semantic before we got a chance to actually remove it.
Right.
But so we'll see how that goes. But I expect like a lot of people to actually use MDSpans because I spoke to people in like a lot of different industry that are really exciting about MDSpan because it turned out that it is useful like for audio, for image manipulation, for any scientific software and so forth. So a lot of people will be using that. So I hope that we can have not parentheses in MDSpan by 23, but it will be difficult, right?
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, but so what I did is that I actually look for this pattern in every open source library that I could find, and nobody is using it beside one file in Spirit that that is deprecated. So so we don't expect this to break anyone's code, and this is why we can deprecate because we know that is not something that people use. So
I just have to imagine, because it's Spirit, they're probably using an overloaded comma operator inside of an overloaded subscript operator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So.
And if you're listening and you don't know what that meant, just be glad that you don't understand what they're doing. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other papers that you're working on that you wanted to highlight?
I did with Robert Douglas. We did manage to pull source location out of a library fundamental limbo that it was in. So because papers that go into library fundamental, like they get forgotten. But so we will have like source location, which is a replacement for line and file macros.
Okay.
And right. So yeah. So I have that, and this is pretty cool because I have this crusade against the preprocessor, and I'm hoping that we can at some point not need to have a preprocessor in C++ anymore. This will take some time, but this is one part of that, so that's pretty exciting.
That's cool.
And yeah. So I have that. I have a paper about like Unicode properties, but Unicode maybe 23, maybe not. We'll see how that goes. But a lot of work to get Unicode in C++. So yeah, and I think that's about it.
Okay.
As far as my paper go, yeah.
Okay. Outside of your own proposals, what are you most looking forward to with C++20?
Aside my own proposal, I don't know. Like, so I'm pretty excited about concept and ranges, obviously, and I guess Corentin are really, really great, and I think they will make a lot of code, like networking code and anything that is asynchronous, much more simpler to write and teach and to maintain. So that's really, really exciting, and it like Corentin, I've been a battle in the committee for quite a long time. And I think we voted on Corentin like 3 or 4 times before they were finally accepted. So yes, that's one of the exciting things of C++20. And I mean, like there are so many things in C++20. It's like by far the biggest release of C++. Like I think it's probably bigger than 11 at this point. So
Yeah, that's probably true, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess for you, Jason, we have even more context things you can play with.
Yay, Constexpr.
Yeah, everything is context now.
Yeah,
So,
I'm really looking forward to that with some of the algorithms specifically.
Yeah. And you can also have like some context for allocation, which is quite probably will be quite useful.
Yeah.
To use like vector and string in context.
Yeah, that would be game changing in some contexts.
Yeah, I think it will. Yeah. So.
Okay. Jason, you have any other questions you want to ask?
I am good.
Okay, well, it's been great having you on the show today, Corentin.
Okay, so thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks.